Hey, Thomas Tapp here, and today's training video we're going to be going over and discovering the art of falling. Now, if we learn how to fall properly, this is going to help us prevent a lot of injury and save us in those risky situations. So not only is learning how to fall properly going to help us in those risky situations, when we're being chased or if we're chasing someone and you have to take those high drops from about a story up, or you get pushed over and you have to take a fall. It's also going to help in everyday experiences. So you've probably experienced this before, where you're walking down the road or you're walking on the sidewalk, you take a wrong step or you trip over a curb and you fall over. Now, for most people that don't know how to fall properly, they're going to get hurt. They're going to fall, hit their wrist, a lot of impact on the wrist usually, falling back. A lot of people break their wrist. You probably had some friends or something that have broken their wrist doing that. Also, bashing up the knees, tweaking the ankles, twisting the ankles, breaking the ankles, falling backwards, hitting the back of the head, knocking yourself out. There's a lot of bad things that can happen when you take a fall. So if we learn how to fall properly, instead of experiencing the pain of falling over or the embarrassment of falling over or getting hurt with those little injuries, we're going to be able to absorb all that momentum, roll out of it, and not experience any injury. And a story I want to share with you, this is pretty funny, and it's involved one of my friends back in college. My friend Alex, he stayed with us in Denton, Texas, and one of the things we'd do is we'd cross this big, busy street, because it's off campus, and we'd go to this Chinese restaurant. It was horrible Chinese food, but it was cheap, so we always ate there. One day, we were going across the road just to go to this Chinese restaurant, and we'd always wait for the cars and see, when there was a clear opportunity to run across. We run across, sprint across, and I hear this thud, and I look back, and I see Alex just tripped. He tripped over this pothole. And another thing I noticed is when I looked up, there was a truck coming right at him. So he's falling towards the ground like, okay, he's going to die, or he's going to get seriously hurt. He falls, but he goes directly into a parkour roll and runs out of it and runs with us across the street. And we started laughing about it because it's pretty funny. But just from that experience, learning the parkour roll, because we had taught him, I think it was about 3 days, we spent just training him the basics and stuff and learning the parkour roll. And just those 3 days, he learned how to do the parkour roll, and it became instinct. And that's what he told us after he rolled out of it, was that he didn't even think about doing the roll, it just happened. So that's what we want, and this is how important it is to train these techniques and learn it, because when a situation happens, you don't even have to think about it, you naturally just roll out of it. And in this case, for Alex, it saved his life from getting hit by a truck. So we train these techniques so that whenever you do get in a situation where you least expect it, you don't even think about it, it's just a natural reaction. Now, these techniques that we're showing you today comes from parkour, Ukemi, and stunt falls. Now, parkour has been tested and proven in the urban environment, and that's the environment that we're going to be in most of the time, for over 30 years now. It was actually proven on Sports Science from a good friend of ours, Ryan Duell, and Daniel Labaka, that they had them jump off this 10-foot obstacle and do a parkour roll. Now, when they tested it, they found that the impact they felt was the same amount of impact as a normal person doing a jumping jack. So if you do a jumping jack, that's the impact they felt by performing this roll. So it shows you how efficient and how useful this technique is. Now, the Ukemi techniques we're going to be showing you is going to be falling in different directions, throwing your access off and learning how to fall. This was taken from Amos from Apex Movement, Colorado, and he has different workshops he teaches on it, so we're going to be teaching you that. Also, some stunt fall techniques that we've learned in the stunt business here from some of the top stunt players around the world. Now it's time for the fun stuff. I'm going to leave you with Jonathan. He's going to show you the exact techniques for falling and landing.
Hey, Jonathan here, and we are here downtown, one, because it looks cool, and two, most of the time when you're in a real life situation, you need to land or brace a fall, you're going to be outside doing something, and usually not in a gym location. But for starting out, it is good, if you want to go to a gym and practice some of these movements there, or find a soft ground or environment to learn these basic moves. But for demonstration purposes, we wanted to show it to you in a real life situation environment. Also, you notice I'm wearing jeans, a regular shirt, and these are actually some tactical boots, so they're nice. I like to wear them around, but they have a minimalist sole, so I can feel a lot, and they're really low profile, but they're strong and light. So that's why I'm wearing these, because usually if I'm out and going somewhere, I'm wearing shoes like this, and that's just something to keep in mind for the shoes that you buy, like dress shoes and stuff like that. You want to buy something that you can move in, because you're gonna, when you encounter a situation where you need to land like this, odds are you're gonna be doing regular things. You're not gonna be wearing your running shoes. So make sure, just keep that in mind when you're picking out shoes that you can actually do stuff in it. It will help you out in the future. So that's why we're doing the tutorial in this outfit. So let's go ahead and get started. There's two concepts that I want you to have in your mind for everything that has to do with landing, when we're taking straight landings. And the first one is alignment. You always want your body to be aligned properly. So just keep that in mind. You want to think about your joints and how they're supposed to bend, and how your body structure supports itself. So just keep that in mind when we're going over these basic movements to build up into some of these landings. The second thing I want you to keep in mind is imagine that your body is like a spring. So with this alignment, your body is going to act like a spring so it can absorb the downward force. And then the third thing I want you to think about, third concept, is that the main thing about landing is absorbing and distributing momentum. So you're taking downward force, and either you're absorbing it through your structure and your alignment, or you're going to be, I'm gonna wait for that car to pass, or you're going to be, running forward and rolling and distributing that downward force across a roll so that you don't injure yourself. So with those things in mind, let's go ahead and show you the basic landing. Now, with the basic landing, we'll start off with the feet. We're going to be, actually, we'll start even before that. So when you jump off of something, you want your body to be pretty straight. So that way, when you land, you're letting your body absorb a lot of the momentum. So if you're tucked up tight when you're jumping off something and you're landing this low, again, that spring analogy, you're not going to have much spring to absorb. If you're up here and you're pretty straight, then your body's going to have a lot more spring to absorb with. Now, you don't want to be locked out, like straight, when you land, because your joints won't be able to work properly. You could hyperextend something, and I've seen guys really injure themselves when they try to land and they're too stiff and their body doesn't absorb. It just straightens and it compounds onto their joints. So when you're coming in the land, you want to just be relaxed. A slight bend is good. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the feet. How do we land or come in contact with the ground with our feet? We're going to try to land just right below the balls of the feet. And so right about here. That's the best place to land, so that your ankles and your feet, and you can already start the whole alignment process, that spring process, properly by landing right there. Now, if you land too much on the toes, you're going to put too much pressure, and you're going to probably break your foot or have an alignment issue as you go up. And then if you land too much on the heels, it's going to lock up this joint. You're not going to be able to use it, and most of the times, all that momentum and pressure will go into your lower back or into your knees. And I've had a friend that did that, and he landed on his heels, and all of it went into his back, and it totally just destroyed his lower back. He had to go to the doctor and everything. So those are things you want to keep in mind for this first landing. So if you want to right now, go ahead and test it out. Use the balls of your feet, and then try going to the heels and seeing how that feels. And you'll notice a big difference. When you're landing too much in the heels, it's too much force, and it doesn't feel good. Even for a small jump like that, you can really feel it. Alright, so the next thing we want to talk about is with the knees. So we'll land on the balls of the feet. As we land, we're going to, of course, obviously we're going to lower the knees. But one thing you want to make sure is that your knees are going over your toes. Some people will bend them in, and what you're doing is you're putting too much pressure on these joints. The joints are made to bend, in alignment. And again, we're going back to that alignment that we're talking about. So you want your knees to go over your toes in alignment. Now, we're not going to go past 90 when we land, just because that'll put a little too much pressure on the knees. We want to, usually when you do that, you're going too low and your body can't support it as well, especially when we're first starting. So you're gonna keep just a little bit, above 90 or right at 90 degrees. You don't want to bend any further than that. So now we're gonna move to the hips. So everything's aligned properly. Now the hips, when we're taking landings, a lot of people will press their hips forward. I've seen this a lot. Instead of absorbing, and when you press the hips forward like this and you tuck your hips under too much, you're not able to absorb, and you put too much pressure on the knees because the knees are going out way too far because your balance is off, and they look like this, and it's just not pretty, and it feels awkward. So what we want to do is take the hips and drop them. So you're going to keep integrity in the back, but we're going to sink into the hips when we land. So the hips are going to drop down like this instead of pushing forward. And you also don't want to push them out too much because then the alignment in your back will be off. So you don't want to arch. So just a nice smooth landing here. Now the third thing, or the next thing I want to talk about, is the back. And with the back, we just want to keep it relaxed and straight with good posture. You don't want to curl over too much, and you don't want to arch. The better alignment you have in your back, the more you'll be able to absorb, and the less risk of injury you're going to have with your spine. So those are the basic principles and steps to the basic landing, and it's really important that we get that down. Some of these are simple, but if we don't get it down, it's going to screw us up for the next landings that we are going to learn, because this is the basic principle for all the basic landings where we're landing on the feet and absorbing. So right now, just I'd like you to try a few out. So what you're going to do is you're just going to stand in place. You're going to jump up and then jump down, and use those concepts and steps that we talk about. So landing around the balls of the feet, bending the knees over the toes, and then lowering with the hips and keeping the back nice and straight, not hunching, not arching, just keeping a good form and absorbing just a little bit. And just try to be really quiet with the landing, so really silent, almost like a ninja. So that basic landing is used for small jumps and hence the name for basic landings. Now this next one we're going to learn is called a slap landing. It's where we're actually going to use our hands to drop down even further to absorb more momentum and more speed on bigger landings. So this one's going to be used for ones with a little bit of forward momentum where you need to run out of it smooth, and for ones that are a little bit higher drop. So if you're dropping straight down off of something, you're going to use this type of landing. Now the slap landing is exactly like the basic landing, except for you're adding on additional steps. So we're doing all the same things we did before, the alignment, we're absorbing, except for we're going to have our hands down in front, and instead of bending past 90 to reach that, what we're going to do is lean slightly forward, so that way our body is going to should be tilted at a slight angle, so that when we hit the ground, we're going to use our hands as an extra support to absorb a little more. We're using our joints, so that instead of just using our legs, we're going to be able to use our whole body to absorb the landing. And then we have a little bit of forward momentum, which enables us to distribute even more of that momentum when we run out. So it's the same thing, except for now, the arms are going to be straight in front of us, palms are going to be facing in front, like so. And I like to put my hands slightly inside of my knees. You can either do that or align them perfectly with your knees. That's fine too. And usually I'll have my hands slightly, or my legs just a tad bit wider if I'm doing a straight drop where I'm like that. And if I'm doing one where I'm running a little bit, then I'll usually line up more with the knees because I'm falling a little bit more forward and I'm running out of it. And it's easier to do that when your hands are aligned. So we're going to be dropping down, slapping the hands down on the ground. Our knees aren't going to go below 90 again because we're going to be leaned forward, so that way we don't have to bend so far down. We'll still stay at that 90-degree angle, lean forward, and then as we come up out of it, we're gonna jump and go into a run. So it'll look like this. Here, then up. And so just test that out a few times right now. You did the base land, now add in that slap landing form. So lean a little bit more forward and do a few jumps, just working on absorbing with your whole body. Jumping up, coming down, and springing out of it. So that was a slap landing. We're going to start moving on to the parkour roll now. But it's really important that you understand those fundamentals of the basic landing and the slap landing, because you're going to be using those two forms to go into the parkour roll. So it's really important that you train and get those down, really well before we start doing, big parkour rolls and things like that, because we don't want to develop bad habits. All right, so now that we're going into the parkour roll, it's the same thing, same concept as the basic landing and the slap landing, except again, now we're adding more. Now the parkour roll is going to be used for jumping off high things with forward momentum. You actually want a good amount of forward momentum because it will make it easier to distribute that downward force when we go out further, because we'll be able to lengthen our roll and distribute more of that momentum. So just keep that in mind. So with the parkour roll, instead of just going down like a slap landing, we're going to be tucking one shoulder under and rolling diagonally across the back, so that we avoid the spine, we avoid the bones, and we avoid hitting our head. And we're going to go into that roll, so it'll look like this. So that's what it's going to look like. And here, let's break it down a little bit. So some good steps for learning this roll motion is just by starting out with one leg bent and one knee on the ground. Now, I like to roll over my right shoulder. If you want to roll over your left, just do the opposite. But I'm rolling over my right, and so I'm going to have my right foot up, bent, and it's like at a 90-degree angle. And we're going to take our hands, and we're going to make a diamond. And what we're going to do is we're going to place them on the ground to the left side, and we're going to place them on the ground, and this is where we're going to start to go into the roll. So we're going to kick off with our legs. We're going to look with our head under our armpit so that we're starting to tuck the shoulder in. And we're going to take this hand, collapse it to the elbow as we kick off, and then land on the top part of our shoulder. Make sure to do this really smooth, or else you're going to slam onto your shoulder. Smoothly kick off and roll over. Now, as we roll over diagonally across our back, we're going to curve our back so that we have a nice smooth roll. And then as we come up out of the landing, we're going to activate this first foot. So we're going to keep our legs nice and tight as we're coming around, and keep our feet activated. That means our ankle is going to be pointed up like this. It's not going to be down like this. It's going to be activated, so that means it's going to be up with both ankles. Now for me, I like to turn over my hip a little bit and land with my feet like this as I come out, and I roll into the ball of this foot as I push with my hands and go into a run. Some people aren't as comfortable with that motion, and they'd like to go a little more straight over. So test them out. But the other way is to go a little more straight over as you come out, so you won't turn this hip as far over. You kind of leave it a little more straight, so you land a little like this with your feet pointing straight, and then you run out. I like the first one personally a little bit better, but this is mainly up to preference and how you feel about it, and something you can test out. All right, so that's the first progression with that one leg down and leg bent, and then using the diamond, rolling diagonally across the back, and then finding out which way you want to come out. So try that a few times on a soft area, maybe on carpet or on grass or on mats, and then we're going to go into this next motion. So the next one is, now we're going to add a little bit of momentum into it. We're still going to use the split leg motion, but we're going to walk into it now, so now we have more momentum. So we'll be walking here, same leg goes out in front, the right one, and as we lunge forward, we're gonna put our hands down to that diamond and then go into the roll. Now, one thing you wanna focus on is your hips are gonna still stay straight. Really what's turning is just your upper gate. Your upper gate is turning in order to roll diagonally over the back. Just something to keep in mind because a lot of beginners, they'll twist everything and they end up rolling to the side instead of in a straight line. So it'll look like this, we're walking, and then we're into the roll. So now, try that one, that's the second progression step. Try that a few times right now, see how it feels. If it's too uncomfortable right now to do that, go back to the basic one on the ground until you feel really comfortable and then bring it back up. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna start to straighten our legs because when we, these are great for learning the motion of the roll, but when we're jumping off of high obstacles, we don't want our legs to be split because this is gonna, we won't have even distribution of weight on our legs, and so it's gonna mess up our joints whenever we're taking big drops. We want our body to be aligned like we talked about before, so we're gonna have our legs together, just about shoulder width apart, and we're gonna be doing the same motion now, except now we're gonna be standing here, legs together, slowly bend down, and then kick into the roll. So same motions with the arms, same motion with everything else. We're just doing a little bit different on the takeoff. Okay? Alright, now once you get that, try that a few times, get comfortable with it, and then we're gonna move on to the next progression step. Now the next one is now we're just gonna add a simple jump into it. We're gonna add a simple jump so that way we get more speed, more momentum, and if you have the right form, it'll actually make the roll easier, but if you don't, you'll find out really quickly because you're gonna hit in bad spots. So we're gonna take a nice little jump forward and roll out. Now when you're jumping up like that, you wanna make sure as you jump, you're gonna have your arms in front. If your arms are back here when you're getting ready to land, you're not gonna have enough time to put the arms down. So make sure when you're jumping, the arms are coming in front so that way you can absorb. And now as we get more advanced into it, a lot of problems I see people doing when they start jumping is they'll take their hands and they'll put them too close to their feet. That destroys the roll because you're trying to go too tight, and you usually end up either falling on the back or hitting too hard in the shoulder. So what you want to do is kind of stretch that out here in a natural way and go forward. Okay, now that you have that one down, what we do next is now, instead of just jumping straight, we're gonna jump off of a small obstacle. So we're gonna jump off something really short, like just a simple step at first. Even though it looks small, it adds a lot to the impact that you're gonna feel on the roll. So we can move to something like this. Hopefully the lighting's not too bad, but this is just for demonstration. So we're gonna jump off of here and do this exact same roll motion. Now make sure to do this in a soft area at first because you really find out where your problem spots are when you add a little more momentum, a little more height. Here, then roll out of it. Okay, that's where I want to stop for today, till we get to that point. Now, here's something I want you to do. After you make it, you've completed the roll, you've done all these progressions, and you're able to jump off of a small thing with height and land and do the roll properly on soft ground without hurting yourself. Once you can make it to that level, it's really important that you start to test with harder surfaces. So we just finished the basic landing, the parkour roll. Now we're going to be going into some Yukimi. We're going to only be able to touch the basic surface of Yukimi because there's so much in there, but we felt like we need to show you at least one technique. So we're going to show you one that you're going to be using a lot, and one that I've used a lot, and it's when you catch yourself falling backwards and learning how to fall backwards properly, because this is the main way people break their arms. They knock themselves out, or they give themselves a lot of head trauma because when they don't know how to do the roll backwards, and they really mess themselves up. So this is really crucial you learn this. So we're going to show you the basic technique, and the thing you want to think about is almost just like a parkour roll, except in reverse. So the first thing is most of the times we're laying backwards, kind of off balance anyway. So we're going to try to land with our legs again about shoulder width apart and together if you can, because again, this is the best way to support a big landing. Now, as we're falling back, we do not want to stick our hands straight, locked out. We don't want our wrists to turn like this. We don't want them turned backwards. We want our hands to stay around our hips. Just think about keeping your hands around your hips, because that way it will make it almost impossible for you to outstretch too far and break your arms. So like, as we're falling backwards, we aren't going to stick our hands up like that. We're going to place them close to our hips and keep the fingertips facing in front of you. So as we fall back, we're going to make contact with our butt and our palms at the same time, if you can. And if you can't do that, then make sure to hit your butt first, because that's going to be able to take a lot more impact than your actual wrist and hands. So we're going to land on our butt. Our momentum is going to be kicking backwards. So what we're going to do is we're going to tuck our chin to our chest like this. A big problem is when people get thrown back, they whip their head back. And what this does is it slams it against the concrete when they're here. And that's what causes you to knock yourself out or give you some serious trouble down the way. So what we're going to do is tuck our chin in. As we roll back, we're going to curve our back. And instead of rolling straight over, we're going to hook our body to the side, and we're going to roll over one side. So we're going to take our head from here and look over to the side. And what this will do is it'll cause us to roll over one shoulder. So I look my head to the left, and it enables me to roll over this left shoulder. So I'll be here, and as I do that, I'm going to plant my legs as soon as I can to kick up. So again, it's almost like the parkour roll. We're hitting here, rolling over that shoulder. This hand is going to come up as soon as I can to support on the side, like right here. So as I'm, from this point of view, as I'm rolling over the shoulder, using the side of this arm and planting my right arm down to push me up. Like so. And then kicking out of it as soon as I can with my legs straight. You want to try to keep them straight if you can. So here we'll do it a little bit faster. So you're falling back, and you roll out of it like that. And again, you want to roll diagonally if you can to avoid hitting your spine. So that's a basic back fall technique. You're going to use it a lot, especially if you're coming off something at a weird angle, you end up twisting backwards. You're going to want to have this roll down so you don't screw yourself up. Alright, now we're going to be going into some basic stunt fall concepts. We don't have that much time to go into some detailed stunt falls. We'll get into that later down the road. But for now, it's just good to have a basic understanding of these concepts, because these are going to be used for, I'm going to wait for this bus to go by, but these are going to be used for when we're falling off of something and we know we can't land with our feet in any way, and we're going to just have to land either on our side or on our back. And so for this demonstration, I'm just going to point out the things you need to do if you're going to land on your back. So if you're falling down on your back or falling in any awkward position, you want to always make sure you put as many points of contact as you can. And the second thing you want to remember is that you want to avoid any bones that you can. So as we're falling, say if you're doing a back fall and you're having to land on your back, you want to hit, again, with as many points of contact. So you're going to use your feet, you're going to use your butt, you're going to use your whole back, you're going to use your hands, hitting on the sides, the forearms, and you're going to keep your chin tucked to your chest as you fall. And so you want to do is try to aim for all these points of contact at the same time, so that it disperses as much momentum as it can, and you can, handle a large amount of impact. The third thing you want to keep in mind is that you want your body to be relaxed. If you're tensed up, it's just going to shock your whole body. You want to be relaxed It's almost like you hear people who are drunk that get in car wrecks. They usually don't injure themselves too badly because they're really relaxed when they're going to the wreck. And if you tighten up, you're going to tear things, and it's just not good for your body. So you want to relax. Try to relax as much as you can as you're hitting. It's going to be, your body's going to be able to absorb the pressure and momentum much more efficiently. Also, another thing to help with that is to breathe out. Exhale as you're falling, because this will automatically relax your muscles a little bit and will enable you to, so instead of knocking the wind out of you, all the breath's going to be out and you'll be able to land much smoother. So those are the basic concepts for the stunt falls. We wanted to give you the best concepts early, so as we go on, you'll be able to catch on very quickly. So remember that we're going to stay relaxed, we're going to breathe out, we're going to hit as many points of contact as we can, and we're also going to avoid hitting any bones and things like that. Stay on the meaty parts of your body. All right, so that covers the basic landing, the parkour roll. We showed you an example of Ukemi, the back roll, which is perfect for one of the first things to learn because it's crucial when you're falling backwards that you have that down. And then we learned the basic concept for stunt falls. That way, if you're ever falling off of something, you at least have the concepts in your mind so that you know what to do when you're going to hit. So start to work on these basic progressions, things we showed you today, and I'll see you in the